Thank you, Mr. Dumas. Our next speaker?
Our next speaker is Mr. Adam Garrix.
Mr. Garrix? Good evening.
Hi. Special committee to investigate Carriagetown got formed, and there hasn't been any progress on it. And I wanted to point a few things out that should be investigated about it. I pointed it out last time I was here about the water meter that was billed to me by the city, paid for by Major Grants Department, for an address I've never lived at. Didn't know anybody there. I mean, that seems pretty criminal. It's only $180, but I can't be the only person. Now, I also want to point out in Walling's history that he was part of the Urban Coalition, the treasurer that had the involvement with the city council person that did 30 months in prison for bribery. Same thing's going on, I believe, with Flint Public Art Project. He's on the advisory council. It goes anywhere from $350,000 to $500,000 in grant money that's been supposedly spent at University and Stone Street. And if you go to that corner and take a real close look, there's no way $350,000 was spent there. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that special committee to investigate Carriagetown is supposed to be looking into. So it really just starts to make me wonder who's getting paid up here to not investigate that also. So, you know, I mean, I'd like to see some progress. First, I had a proposal passed a couple of years back before the financial manager came in, and then it got tabled and shelved because the financial manager came in and y'all didn't have any power. Now you kind of got power because there's that transition committee I keep hearing about, but a motion got passed unanimously, ironically, right before the primaries, which I wasn't aware of, so seems like it was a political decision to pass it unanimously also. I'd like to see some progress on that, you know. Also, I keep bringing up the incompatible public offices, which I brought directly to your attention, and I have not heard one single thing back, so I'm wondering if you're not getting paid from the back door. Rumor has it, you know, a lot of people are getting paid to throw their hats in the ring, too, before primaries, to screw with the votes. So, I mean, I'd like to get some kind of answer. This was 2-3 weeks ago, you know, and since I've successfully gotten a restraining order against the city of Flint and the decision that Ambrose made to annex the neighborhood, and it's actually being violated by Kettering and by Hurley, which means the city's responsible. There's a hearing next week, and a whole lot of my neighborhood is coming in. And I want you to understand one thing about Carriagetown. I could care less about the historic district issue. The fact is this is just like the water issue. We were denied due process. Nobody in that neighborhood got a letter, not one person, to be made aware that there was supposedly hearings taking place to annex our neighborhood. So what you have here is a track record of no due process, possible bribery, and all other kinds of things going on with grant money that nobody can track and be accountable for, or there's no transparency for. So I'd like to hear something, because you guys passed a motion, and this is the second time you've passed my motion to investigate Carriagetown.
Thank you, Mr. Garrix. Our next public speaker?
Our next speaker is
Mr. President.
Mr. Chris Del Moroni.
Mr.
Del
President.
Moroni. We'll discuss
No, Mr.
each-
President,
we'll
that with Adam Jerix was also put on the agenda, and it ain't showing up. I specifically remember asking that be put on the agenda. Did she take that off too?
Which portion of what he spoke of, Councilman?
You remember in committee meeting, Mr. Nelson had said something about respecting the position of the Fifth Ward council person, and then Kincaid was chairing the meeting, and then me and Kincaid talked. I specifically went to the secretary and asked that it be put on the agenda because I knew of that injunction.
What
so I'm
issue?
saying the issue with the historic district as it relates to the legalities of that injunction.
I believe it was put on the planning and development agenda,
No.
which hasn't happened yet.
It was put on the cow. It should have been put on the
I
cow.
wasn't at the meeting, so
You
I'm
recall,
100%.
Mr. Kincaid? Yeah. So they killing us on the public issues and on the legal issues in a timely manner. And if you'll allow, Mr. Davis, I mean, we got to get to the business of making ourselves look like we are a leadership legislative body. If the city administrator and executive body, they making us look like fools.
Well, I think that I believe the two specific issues that he talked about, the Carriagetown Committee which was voted on 9-0. I sent out an email to every member on council the next day asking for volunteers, and I'm still waiting on a reply from anyone from council that wants to be on that committee. It was a 3 to 4 member, if I remember correctly, it was going to be a 3 to 4 member committee.
I remember that.
I've got not one reply from one council person. That's number one. The incompatibility of public office, I believe that was on Ms. Galloway's committee, Finance and Administration, and that we did talk about that in committee.
Well, you
So-
can, Chair, President, you can put me down as one person on that.
And you
committee.
put me down as two.
So I've got Mays and Davis that want to form that committee. Is there anybody
But
else?
we also asked that legal thing be brought up in executive session if need be in this past
I
cow
was in,
committee.
I was in and out of that meeting, so I
Well,
can't
I'll be
100%
at
tell you.
meetings, I know. And
Yeah.
so, Mr. Jerix, just so you know, somebody didn't put that request on the agenda.
Okay.
I'm not surprised neither.
So I will ask that Councilman Mays and Councilman Davis get together to form their committee and start moving forward with that process.
I'm going to
because
be on that committee also.
You're going to be on that as well. Nelson, there we have our 3-person committee. And I believe when I sent out that email and I said that that committee, it wasn't very specific as to what they were going to, what the scope of their responsibility was, and that it would be up to the committee to determine that. So I will leave that up to the 3 of you.
And
to
I would say,
determine what it is.
I would say this as we wait for the next speaker, Mr. President. Adam has done a great job in Netherlands Court so far, but to me, and no disrespect, Adam, we need a similar committee dealing with this water issue. And I volunteer for that too. Not to belittle the historic district, but with the vote that they just made not to have an emergency meeting for water because we couldn't get 5 votes and now we committeeing up on historic district, I volunteer wholeheartedly to be on the committee dealing with these water issues and what's going on with that litigation. Let's set that one up in between
We did send that to
speakers.
committee. We sent that to the Finance and Administration Committee, which is going to meet
That's
on the
the
9th.
one
So
everybody dodging.
that issue is in a committee, and there is a group of people
Yeah,
that are going to be
I want to see that one set up on the floor.
dealing with it. I just told you it's on the 9th.
Yeah, I
At
know it
4:30.
because the city administrator pushed it back to the 9th, and we, the legislative body,
I
and
think it was
y'all
an 8.
voted
I think
me
it
on
was
the
an
meeting.
8-to-1 vote. To
Well,
do
I
on the
know
meeting.
it was a 8-to-1. We need to be on
next
top
speaker?
of that now. I'm glad to be the one.
Good.
Mr. Del Moroni, would you please come forward?
Mr. Del Marone, good evening.
Thank you. My name is Chris Del